Live.
Good evening and welcome to General Council for May 12th, 2026. Let's go to number one in our agenda, attendance roll call. Go ahead.
Scano, Swagwegi, Amos Key Jr.
Helen Miller.
Audrey Paulus Momberry.
Dale Bomberry. Dean Hill.
Hazel Johnson.
Melba Thomas.
Elena Venevri.
Cynthia Jameson.
And Leslie and Carrie and Greg aren't able to make the meeting tonight. So let's go to number two, community acknowledgements. Number one, let's take a moment to remember those community members that we have recently lost. Let's take a moment. Thank you. Okay, let's go to number two. The Brantford Ice Cats U11A first place overall finish in their division at Ontario Women's Hockey Association 2026 provincials. You! They're here with us in the chambers. So we're proud to acknowledge 4 outstanding young community members who won the 2026 Ontario Women's Hockey Association Provincial Championship with the U11A Brantford Ice Cats. Sky Bomberry, Yunde Serlunjas, or Yunde, Brant Gamble, Candace Johnson, Cadence Johnson, and Madison White. Yep, the team went undefeated in round robin play, then defeated Sault Ste. Marie 6-1 in the semifinal. In a thrilling triple overtime championship game, Yunde Serlunjas, Brant Campbell scored the winning goal just 2 minutes into the third overtime, securing a 3-2 victory for the Ice Cats. Way to go. We are very proud of these young athletes and are excited to see where their hockey journeys take them. Congratulations and best of luck next year. Okay, the first one that I have is Sky Bomberry. So if you want to go around and shake everybody's hand, okay? Cadence Johnson. Okay. There you go. Yunde Brant Campbell. And Madison White. So the parents want to come up, take a picture, Jody says. Is that one good? Very good. Okay, congratulations again. Good job, good job. And triple overtime support. There you go. That was great. Triple overtime. Okay, let's go to number 3, adoption of the agenda. Is any additions or deletions? If not, can I have a mover? Moved by Audrey. Seconder? Second by Melba. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 4, adoption of the minutes for April 28th. Is there a mover? Okay, moved by Audrey. Is there a seconder? Second by Helen. Go ahead, Audrey. Turn your mic.
I think it's this one. It said I didn't do a presentation on education, and I did my presentation for lifelong learning on the 14th at council here. So it was April, so we haven't had our meeting for May yet. So my update was given. No, I'm not reading anything. It's what I saw from before.
It's for the open.
I believe so. Let me just check.
April 28th for the open. Or April. Yeah, April 28th. This is for the minutes. So you're on bereavement, Audrey?
On which day? No, on the 14th I was here. I did my presentation.
Yeah, but this is for April 28th.
We wouldn't have 2 meetings in April.
This is general council.
I presented at general council
On the 14th.
on the 14th.
Okay, these are the minutes for the 28th, April 28th. So you already, because on the April 28th it says you're off on bereavement.
Yeah. I was, but I'm just saying the minutes I've already presented to them, so I wouldn't have had to present that night. Check it out then, please. Thank you.
Okay, we'll look into it. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Be opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 5, delegations and presentations. Tabitha Curley, Fluid Consulting. Seeking approval to conduct Six Nations of the Grand River Community Engagement for the City of Brantford's Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation Framework Community Engagement. Good evening, Tabitha.
Hello, Chief. Hello, Council. Thanks for having me back today. It's kind of nice to be here in person to see such a little positive presentation. And it kind of ties into like what I'm hoping to do today is we're doing community engagement for the Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation Strategy. This is an early listening engagement, and I previously came to Council in March of this year to provide information before it was launched in the city of Brantford. But as we know, a lot of the people of Six Nations and neighboring communities do go to Brantford with the cats on the team. So getting community insight on how to better relations and reconciliation activities in Brantford does have a huge bonus to our community because we can create that space that we want our children to be able to thrive in, our community to be able to go to neighboring communities and purchase groceries or access municipal services, whatever it may be. So today I'm coming back. So because what happened in March is we accepted it as information because I was requested by the Six Nations Research Ethic Committee to put the community engagement process in its questions through an ethical review to ensure that it aligns with OCAP principles and principles of this community. So I have since received a letter on April 30th from the Six Nations Research Ethics Committee where they have approved that community engagement, reviewed our questions, gave us a little bit of feedback. Some of the feedback included ensuring that we're working with your communications department to align messaging or channels of operation, to ensure that our information remains de-identified. And that one final suggestion there was the suggestion about an advisory committee for a group of people to be able to review the What We Heard report that is conducted, that would be created after we collect all of the community engagement. We create a What We Heard report where we de-identify information and aggregate it into themes. They suggested that we take that back to research ethics so they can ensure that there's no identifying information that might be harmful to the community or might indicate that a particular member said that. So we are all in agreement with all of those things, and we're here to ask your permission to go out and start soliciting to Six Nations community members to participate in this survey, and then also invite administration if they are interested to do one-on-one interviews. And because bread and cheese is around the corner, I would love to be able to perhaps have a booth at the bread and cheese to get some of the surveys out, answer any community questions that the community might have. I do have team members who are willing to be able to take on that day and set up a booth. So I'm hoping that the briefing note I provided you has outlined the engagement process. And I just want to confirm that this is an early listening engagement. It's about getting feedback, seeing where we stand, sourcing ideas for how we can work together as good neighbors.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, your briefing note, I don't see in our Dropbox, and that was one of my questions, I guess just your process and procedure on how you're gonna gain, access to the community to get input, that's all. Not in your briefing notes, not in my Dropbox, so that was my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. So there's a few ways community members can participate. So there is a public survey that's been launched in the city of Brantford already. So I would like to advertise that in community spaces. So whether it's posters in the community, perhaps there might be a mail out. And I know that we need permission to mail out on Six Nations. So they would be able to fill out the survey. I have purposely not posted it on social media, Six Nations or New Credit specific pages out of courtesy and respect to ensure that this process is vetted in the proper ways and the community is protected. So I would start advertising it online. There may be some ads here or there, but right now, mostly posters, direct email lines. We would invite, if the council is willing to participate in one-on-one interviews, I would send you a direct email. You would book a time with me or one of my engagement members. Same goes with other leadership members that might exist within council departments or even exterior departments such as like Ganuk or Shaw, because a lot of municipal services do very similar things to Ganuk or Shaw, like shelters, housing, homelessness, social services. They all kind of co-align. So we would put that out as an open invite. We have until the end of July to accept survey feedback. The other option is that you can host a focus group. These are by request only, and they tend to be requested by an organization. So right now we have pending about 3 or 4 settling dates of focus groups with Indigenous organizations that operate in Brantford, such as the Friendship Center or Brantford Native Housing. You can post one yourself, or all of those members have agreed that you can attend one of their focus groups once they're public. So they're open to having people from other communities. the things with focus groups is you want them to be with like-minded groups. So you want, social services to gather together, health to gather together. You don't necessarily want ECDEV meeting with health to do a focus group or something like that. So we would email back, advertise outwards, and say like, hey, these focus groups are happening in the city of Brantford, and then we would ask the vice versa here with organizations. Say, for example, one of your organizations wanted to host a focus group. We would first ask, are you willing to have exterior participants? And then we would also post that back to like Brantford or New Credit, different organizations. And part of doing focus groups, that whole relationship building kind of starts there with frontline workers. Now they know someone they can call up, so you can now service better individuals that might access housing services on Six Nations, go back to Brantford, go back here. So it creates relationship in and of itself by just getting like-minded people in the same room and putting a face to the name. Oh, and then open house. I want to have open house, sorry.
So also too, Dale, Natasha just said it's in the Dropbox.
So, follow up, Chief? Yeah. So just, I guess, to get people thinking, so let's say me, for example, if I go to Brantford and I have an experience that I'm not satisfied, is that the kind of input you're looking for from community members when they have a not so great of experience dealing with, a business or a restaurant or anything within the surrounding communities? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, in some of the questions we do ask that. So in the survey, it's broken into kind of 7 main themes of activities, there's a little bit of confusion because not everything that people would assume the city does, they do, like education, for example. We do ask about education because that's great feedback for the city, but the city doesn't run education. That's the Grand Erie District School Board. But it's not to say that that insight is not valuable to the city so they can advocate for those members with the Brant housing. So we do ask, there's like a rating scale. How often do you use some of these services? And then there's a follow-up question, how these services made you feel. And it could be a negative or a positive experience, and it has a section that says you may want to reflect upon and then suggest kind of like get people's mind thinking to kind of see what kind of opportunities they want to put there. In the focus groups or the open houses, we have these very large boards that are all around the wall, and they're also broken into subcategories of, say, housing. And then one asks, what are barriers that you see exist, and use a sticky note. And the other side also asks for opportunities, because, for every problem, there needs to be some sort of solution. And it perhaps is one of the community members, maybe someone from City of Brantford, I don't know, who has that creative solution we're looking for. So we ask both obstacles and solutions.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? No? So the recommendation 5.1, therefore it be resolved that the Six Nations of the Grand River, and we add 59th elected council. Number 1, approve participation in the City of Brantford's Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation Community Engagement Campaign. Number 2, authorize Fluid Consulting to conduct engagement activities within Six Nations of the Grand River in accordance with approval ethical protocols. And number 3, request that a Six Nations specific what we heard report be created and reviewed by the Six Nations Research Ethics to ensure alignment with OCAP. And number 4, a copy of the what we heard report be provided to council upon completion of engagement as information. Moved by Dean, second by Melba. Any other questions or comments? See none? All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none? Carried. Waive second reading. Moved by Dean, second by Melba. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none? Carried.
All right, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yes.
See you guys at Bread and Cheese.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yep. Thank you for coming in. Okay, let's go to number 6, Chief's update. So a period from April 24th to Thursday, May 6th. On April 25th, I was able to drop in at the Six Nations Farmers Association annual general meeting. I also dropped into the roundtable Future for Six Nations Health as an integrated Indigenous health service. And also, I dropped into the Six Nations Skating Club banquet to present a plaque for their 50th anniversary. I attended the J Treaty Border Alliance Collaboration Initiative High Table meeting virtually on April 27th. This alliance remains committed to working collaboratively with the Government of Canada and federal partners to advance practical and right-based solutions for tribal and First Nations border mobility. I was out in the community on April 28th for the annual Pay It Forward Day. I gave out flowers, cookies, and donuts to encourage a chain reaction of kindness, where one good deed leads to another. This global initiative promotes and inspires individuals to make a difference by helping others. I delivered opening remarks at the First Nations First Responders Brunch on May 1st. The event included invited allies of midwives, hospice, and crisis staff. Counselor Dean Hill was the MC, and counselors Melba Thomas, Hazel Johnson, Cynthia Jameson, and Amos Key were in attendance. Again, Nyawa, for all that you do for our community. On May 1st, Tulips and Maples Gala and Dinner is a Dutch-Canadian celebration. I delivered greetings at the Canadian Military Heritage Museum in Brantford. This evening brought together community leaders, dignitaries, and partners in a more formal setting of remembrance and celebration. I attended the Iroquois Caucus meeting last week in Ottawa. Some of the invited guests included Alto, High Speed Rail. We received updates on their engagement work. The Federal Major Projects Office provided information about their roles and responsibility. Minister Alty, Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada. Issues raised included additions to reserve, support for J Treaty Border Alliance, concerns with Bill S2, an act to amend the Indian Act, new registration entitlements, and fire and emergency safety. And that concludes my update. Is there a mover to accept? Moved by Hazel, second by Melba. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 7, the CEO updates. Go ahead, Deb.
Thanks, Chief. I have a few announcements from some of our well-being programs. The first one is about elder legal support services. So the Senior Support Hub is now partnering with the Grey Bruce Legal Clinic to bring the Elder Law Project to Six Nations of the Grand River. So the services that this provides to the community is creating a will, creating a power of attorney, doing the paperwork for that, and also just general advice. So the next sessions are May the 19th, so that's next Tuesday, from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And also on Wednesday, May the 20th, from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. This is located at 1830 6th Line, Unit 4. So that's the plaza just behind Chiefswood Gas. You have to be 55 to register for this event, and the number to call is 519-445-4481. This is also out on our social media platforms. The next 3 are from our outreach team. Our outreach team is a harm reduction team. They now have a new vehicle that they are sporting in the community. It's a white GMC with their logo on it. And they provide a lot of different services regarding harm reduction and just general supports for the community. So you'll notice the vehicle out in the community on Tuesday, May the 19th from 1 to 3 p.m. They have snacks, they have resources. So for more information, you can contact Marissa or call. She's at 519-761-2886. Also, from our harm reduction outreach team, they offer food and support outreach. They offer a light lunch and chats. They're going to be located this Wednesday, tomorrow, May the 13th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the White Pines Wellness Center. They're going to be also available May the 27th. That's also a Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And they're located on that day at the Great Building. So for more information, you can also call Marissa again at 519-761-2886. And the last initiative they're hosting is Shelter Hep C and Harm Reduction Outreach Team are partnering to offer hepatitis C and HIV testing. You can actually get results within minutes. You can also pick up naloxone kits, gather community resources, and ask questions about Hep C and HIV and have a discussion with a nurse. Some of the upcoming dates are Friday, April 24th, Friday, May 29th, Friday, June the 26th, Friday, July 31st, Friday, August the 28th, and Friday, September 25th. They are going to be set up at the White Pines Wellness Center, and that's located at 1745 Chiefswood Road from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So it's basically the last Friday of every month. So for more information, again, you can contact Marissa at 519-761-2886. Thank you.
Okay, can I have a mover to accept his information? Moved by Audrey, seconder. Second by Amos. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 8, bread and cheese 2026 update. Is that yours too? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is going to be a rundown of our bread and cheese festivities. So on Sunday, May the 17th, this Sunday, the fireworks will happen starting at approximately 9:45 p.m. and that's located at the Ishwegan Ball Diamonds. On Monday, May the 18th, we have our track and field event starting at 9 a.m. at the horse track. We also on that day have free midway and rides. That's only from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The bread and cheese parade will begin at 11:30 a.m. And bread and cheese distribution and opening remarks from our chief and council will begin following the parade. The location is at our Six Nations Sports and Cultural Memorial Center, and that's at 1738 4th Line. We also have the bread and cheese delivery list. So bread and cheese will be delivered to the following: the Six Nations Police, the Six Nations Paramedics, Six Nations Fire and Emergency Services, our dialysis unit, Six Nations Hospice, senior complexes, Youth Lodge, Gunaquashra, and our Iroquois Lodge residents in Delhi. Additionally, bread and cheese deliveries will be available for up to 300 on reserve community members outside of Ishwegan that live in our community. Those who identify as seniors, people with disabilities, or those who have not connected with services in the community, and there are no family members to connect with and or no transportation. So those interested in getting their bread and cheese delivered can call the Senior Support Hub 519-445-4481. That's it.
Okay, can I have a mover to accept his information? Moved by Dean, second by Audrey. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 9, recommendation from Finance Committee. Moved by Cynthia Jameson and second by Dale Bomberry that the Finance Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River 59th Elected Council the draft Six Nations of the Grand River Community Strategic Investment Fund Policy and application be presented at a general finance meeting in, should I say May? Yeah. Can I just change that to May? Okay. Go ahead, Lena.
Natasha, I emailed you a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. I wonder if you can open it or I can sit in the middle, whatever's. Oh, there it is. You're so quick. Okay. So, this policy was asked for by council recommended by the finance department, so that we could kind of align where we're investing funds within the community for projects, make sure they're falling into the categories that the community identified in the community plan, and the guidelines for the OFNLP funding. The finance department was also happy that this was coming forward because it gives admin a process to accept all of these requests that generally have just come in just haphazardly and sometimes without the information. So there's a lot of back and forth. So a process to streamline all of that has been developed by the finance committee. It's gone through review at that table with the finance department. So what you're seeing now is after those suggestions and revisions, there has not been, it was sent out, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks ago to council for input, but nobody responded to that. So now's your chance. I'll go through very high level, I guess. So the next slide is just a quick agenda of the slides that we'll see. We can go to the third one, Natasha, which is purpose and definitions. So this policy establishes a framework for evaluating and approving funding requests aligned with the Six Nations Community Plan, and as I mentioned, also the OFNLP guidelines. And the goal is to support high impact community driven initiatives and ensure transparent, fair decision making. So we see the community plan listed here. There's an evaluation framework. Competing interests that may influence decision making are addressed through this process. There is a funding agreement that's also been generated so that successful applicants sign off on appropriate asks at the end, including of direct to vendor financing. So no longer will council pay the applicant or the organization. It will be, please submit your invoices and the finance department will pay those. It also supports capacity building. So we want to see projects that are becoming able to stand on their own 2 feet and not necessarily requiring council funding to operate. It needs to provide community benefit, so that has to be demonstrated somehow. Next slide is eligibility and funding parameters. So in the community, there is this Six Nations Economic Development grassroots stream of funding, and that's up to $15,000. So not to compete with economic development, but to fill the gap over that $15,000. So must demonstrate benefit to the Six Nations community, must align with community plan priorities, must align with OFNLP categories. Partnerships are encouraged, capacity building must be demonstrated. And then the annual maximum, that's something that council as a whole should determine. And I would imagine that that would be calculated every year, not necessarily a set amount, but based on the budget, a set aside can be attributed to this policy. So in the evaluation framework that was developed, when these are scored, the application is looked at. The initial weight for well-being was 25%, culture 20%, growth 20%, foundations 25%, feasibility 10%. During committee review, it was proposed that well-being be up to 45%, and that included the culture, so just combining those two. Growth and foundations combined together to be another 45. I don't know if you can do it, Natasha, but do you see at the top where it says see appendix? That should hyperlink us. Okay, so all of the framework weights are calculated based on how those questions are answered. Might be the next one. Nope, keep going. Draft application form. Okay, so all of these questions that the applicant would answer, and I want to caution you, it may look cumbersome to people, but a lot of it is just the general information. So the organization name, all of their board information, supporting documents are standard for any application, including financials. It's the executive summary where you're going to see the meat and potatoes of any project. And so those are the things that are weighted. How many community members is this project going to benefit? Super small for me to read. Does it meet all of the criteria? Or does it hit multiple priorities? So, and that's where it becomes the strategy, right? Strategic. We're hitting, and that project may score higher because it's hitting multiple pillars in the community plan, which was drafted based on what the community would like to see happen or for there to be movement on. If we go back quickly, Natasha, to slide 6. So we have toyed around with what is eligible and ineligible, and that should pop up shortly. So ineligible applications would be for-profit organizations or SNGR departments. So our departments access funding elsewhere, and we're hoping to be build capacity with our grassroots and organizations that are not obviously funding private citizens. Essential services, this was also looked at. So it says Fire Police Language Commission, and those are projects that come to us every year for certain funding asks. And we thought those projects might be served better by creating MOUs with those projects rather than them having to apply every year. They're projects that are ongoing and that would benefit from multi-year funding and knowing when their funding is coming next. Duplicate community programs, direct payments to individuals, multiple submissions from the same organization per fiscal year, already funded by another SNGR fund. Ineligible expenses would be obviously HST or recoverable taxes. We would not fund debt repayment or duplicate expenses, so things that are funded elsewhere. Existing staff wages not tied to the project, or self-dealing or related party transactions. And there are some conditional expenses that would be approved on a case-by-case basis. Honoraria, for example, and new project-specific staff and administrative costs would need to be reasonable, justified, and tied to the project, not to the organization. So accountability, next slide is accountability and requirements. So we would require a detailed budget, 3 quotes, preference for Six Nations vendors where possible. Sole sourcing would be situationally approved. Full disclosure of all the funding sources, and conflict of interest must disclose related party transactions and relationships. The next slide is the application process. So we saw very quickly the whole list, the detailed list, but just a summary of that. There's general information that's asked for, which is the organization details, contact information, mission statement, organizational charter, board list. Executive summary, again, kind of the meat and potatoes where you see a project or the dream of the project that they would like funding for. So the title, the cost, a summary of it, community benefit, how it aligns with community plan and OFNLP, and the sustainability plan. Financials, we're asking for a detailed budget, quotes for major expenses, Six Nations vendors preferred, the MERCs for staffing if it is happening in the project but not necessarily approved, that would be the case by case basis, and capital cost estimates. Supporting documents, board approval, incorporation documents, proof of land access, financial statements, proof of insurance, and then a declaration for partial funding viability. So if the project could go on with being partially funded, that's advantageous to us because we can participate in the project without having to fund the entire thing. So that could potentially score higher in the scoring matrix. Certification of accuracy and signature, so just the approvals. Slide, almost done. Okay. Slide 10 is the funding agreement key terms. So it's, the actual document is a little bit longer than this, but not by much. It's just asking for them to sign off on all of this stuff, and it's for our accountability to the community. It is also easier than for finance to generate reports, as we are accountable for this money as well. So for finance to generate the reports to our funders, so that we can continue to have the money flow. So I'm open to questions, and then I can get into the appendix where it breaks out a lot of this stuff into more detail.
Go ahead, Audrey.
In there, it says that the community members should be aligning with the community plan and ONFLP. Are you giving a place where the community can go and find those plans if they don't have them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't want to put what I emailed to the table was the actual policy, like the documents. So all of that stuff's broken out there in the definitions and the terms. This is a little higher level.
Go ahead, Hayes.
So overall, it looks to me like that this plan is identical to the community trust application system and the ECDEV. So now there's 3 in the community, is that right?
I don't know that there's 3. So ECDEV
Will be 3.
stopped doing their regular stream of funding. Since the renewal of the management agreement, I believe they're just doing the grassroots, which ends at $15,000. So there's a gap there that needs to be filled. So this one fills that gap where it's over 15,000. I'm not sure exactly what the parameters are for the community trust. I did put an appendix slide on there. I don't know that online I can see if there's a maximum to the ask there for the community trust. And that money comes from OFNLP, so all of their applications must also align with that. So if that's what you mean, yes, the money that the community organization or member asks for must meet that same criteria. I don't know.
Follow up?
Yeah, I guess where I have some concern is the fact that on many occasions, people have come in to council on urgent matters and needing some assistance. So that'll all be relinquished now if everybody has to put forth an application. And there'll be no more urgent help, I guess. Thanks.
Natasha, if you would go to slide 16. This was just, I put this in here for reference only. This is our donation, grant, and sponsorship fund policy. So that lays out for individuals for the maximum amount of $1,000. That turnaround time for that policy, I think, is a lot quicker than what this over 15,000 policy would do. And I don't think that the strategic investment policy is meant for people in desperate need of something. This is for the projects that come in, much like the Farmers Association with the corn, or we've seen Turo on the Grand with their paddle every year. And they've built major capacity being able to be funded in this way. And I've seen that over my years at economic development. And those projects ask for less and less each year because they're building the capacity on their own. I do believe, and maybe I don't know who's on that committee over at Ontario Works. I think they might do some stuff for individuals in need, in quick need. Yeah.
Go ahead, Helen.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. I don't know if I missed the meeting when this all came up or what, but is this replacing the donation fund? And
No,
what's it replacing?
it's not replacing anything. Currently, we don't have anything to.
Well, we've always had something because we've done it ever since I've been sitting here.
So the process
The
before.
background to what we've done, I'll give you a very brief background. Back when the trust started working, it went really good for about 4 or 5 years, and then people start complaining because they were all getting turned down, or their project didn't meet the deadline for the trust money. Like sometimes a person might have found a program that they wanted to do in, say, February, and the trust's application wasn't till June. So we started doing it for those kinds of reasons, and we made it simple for everyone, so they didn't have to go through all the. I find this very bureaucratic. I think it's really bureaucratic. But anyway, that was the reason we started doing that. So what we did was, every year we'd keep $1 million, at least that's what it was back then, to set aside for people that were coming in for different kinds of projects. And they'd come here and we'd talk and they'd do this, do that, and Shirley or somebody would look after them. And then the next year we would do the same thing. Well, it turned out that some of them started being regular, like you mentioned, the tour on the Grand. That comes every year. The farmers come every year, and different ones would come every year. And that's why we were doing it, to make it easy for people to go out and do what they want to do. And they were all doing really good. Like everybody did what they were supposed to do. I don't think anybody misused the money in any way. And so we just kept doing it every year. I think now we got that list where I think when we were talking finance down at Mont Hill, I think Deb, you read that list. So that's where that list came from when we started doing this to help people out with funding, because we couldn't seem to get along too great with the trust, and then the development trust turned out to be the same way. So now we got this one. I can't support this. I think it's too bureaucratic. It's worse than the trust, as far as I'm concerned. And I thought the trust was bad because I sat there for 6 years, so I know how that went. So I don't know. Does everybody else remember the same reason why we did it as I do? I know most of you weren't here. I guess most of you weren't here. Dale was here. Oh no, he wasn't here either. That was the reason we did it. So now we're turning it into this, and we might as well just keep our money and send everybody down to the trust. Then we won't have to give money to anyone because this is similar. It's not quite the same, it's similar. So those are my thoughts anyway.
Go ahead, Elena.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this was supported by the finance department because administration is having difficulty, I guess, finding a way to prioritize the projects. There's a lack of a standardized ask of information, I guess. Like it's very haphazard what comes in to support. So with this process, you're asking for very particular things. You're asking for the budget. You're asking for a financial statement. I understand the thought around it being bureaucratic. However, we're accountable for these funds. We're accountable to OFNLP. We're accountable to, if the funds came from economic development, we report to them for the money that is sent over. So there's a lot of accountability that was missing from the previous way that things were done. I can't even say process because finance finance was greatly supporting this effort to streamline things, to make things more accountable. Like I mentioned, economic development stopped the general stream, so there is a gap now in the over 15,000 for funding. So it was asked for by this table. It supported by the finance department. It's been through the committee for feedback and suggestion. It was open to this table to provide feedback for the last 3 weeks or more. And I didn't hear from anyone. So
Yeah, go ahead, follow up.
I read it and everything, and I was sitting there totally confused. That's why I never responded because I didn't really know what it was. I wasn't aware we were doing this kind of a thing. I don't know if it came from this table or where it came from to do that. So I never made any comments because I was confused. I wasn't really sure what was going on. All I did was get that thing on a Facebook saying, on email saying, respond to this. And I was reading it, thinking, what is this? Like, where did this come from? I don't recall it coming from this table.
Hazel.
I recall Amos had some concerns about the OFNLP dollars and the spending of it. There was never any procedure like this now where people will have to fill out an application, and I find it exactly how you're thinking, Helen. It's bureaucratic, and it makes it difficult for the community who could always come here. And this council always did the best they could to help somebody who really needed that help. I think that's going to be no longer happening if we have another system. And another thing, I'm not sure. Our director of finance left. Why? And not only that, the whole council was not asked to partake in that committee. It was handpicked. So I do have concerns myself. Thanks.
Go ahead, Dale.
No, I guess just to repeat what Elena said, I mean, yeah, we did talk about it, and I know, yes, it became very, I guess, a little more involved for individuals to fill out an application, but I think the biggest thing was wanting to look at accountability for the funds with OFNLP. And yes, it was, like Helen had expressed and Hazel, it was very open and very easy for someone to come and get funds. But I guess our responsibility, and it was asked by this council to be accountable for it. So that's why it was put together. That's why we talked about it at committee. That's why we talked about it at finance. And it's here now for council's decision in relation to this, because it's just a matter of establishing, I guess, a little more in-depth process instead of somebody walking in here and we're giving them $20,000. So it's just a accountability and tracking mechanism that we were looking at here in relation to the funds. And more times than any, yes, it is the OFNLP funds. And so, I mean, it's here for council. I mean, yeah, there was time for people to share, but it's coming out now, I guess. So, but it's here for council's decision.
Go ahead, Dean.
No, I just want to echo what both of you have said about this, is that it does allow us to have a mechanism now to be accountable for the monies that go in and out from OpenLP to community members, because that, it fluctuates as we see, and some people come in repeatedly, and which is, okay for various events and um, community, I guess, wants. And I like this idea of what we have here, and I'm looking through the whole presentation at the moment, that there is that small gap within the community that is missing from those projects that are 15,000 and above, right? But sometimes there could be one that goes far beyond 15,000. It almost seems like that's the threshold when, we've had ones that come in and ask for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we got to make sure that there's some type of, what Elena has gone through here and the finance committee has gone through, some type of tracking for that type of money, because that's a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be given out to organizations. And even if it's for the community, which is great, it's just to have that on record. And for us, when the community asks, what did we do with all the open LP money? Well, we can have this to show, to say, this is what's been done with it. So personally, I enjoy this here. Thank you.
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, I want to take everyone back to a couple of summers ago. And really, this was about equity, developing a process so council could score equitably. Sometime with the 1 year we had, I believe, 27 projects, and they were in the millions. And there was not enough information from some of the requesters to really score them fairly to say, do we know enough information? And in some instances, council just said, we don't have enough information to make a decision. So really it was about providing a mechanism and a process to be fair and equitable to everyone that was asking for assistance. So that's where it started a couple summers ago, and then into the accountability. So I just wanted to take us back there. Thanks.
Go ahead, Deb.
I think I've mentioned to council before, since sitting in this position, I've noted that I understand how we have operated in the past and how things were, done in order to accommodate the community needs. However, what that does is it doesn't give us a process to follow each and every time. And what I view this as being is a mechanism to gather all of the information that you need in order to make a decision. I like the idea of the MOU with those that are recurrently coming back, because it's not just about accountability, it's about a process. And anywhere else that somebody goes for funding, there will be an application process. So I don't know why this has to be any different, but it's giving you the information that you need ahead of time in order to make the decisions that you need to make.
Go ahead, Dale.
Okay, Chief.
Alba.
Yeah, I haven't heard that there's going to be assistance, because it's going to be confusing again, like it was at the community trust level. These are grassroots people. We hear that word all the time. People who have never put in an application for funding anywhere, some of them, a lot of them. So is there going to be assistance for these people? Because community trust, I believe, has 2 days where they will help them, and they can certainly come into the office, and Melanie looks over the proposal and gives her some advice as to, you haven't said this, you haven't filled this out, or you missed this, all those kind of things that people, grassroots people, are not able to see and do. So I'd like to hear about that, how you're going to assist the people to get off the ground and be, as Linda said, fair and equitable.
Go ahead, Elena.
I think that's something that we can discuss absolutely after we have established a process. I will say though that the application is meant to be not difficult or cumbersome. It was thoughtful in that way. Um, Hazel made mention of this being a duplicate process of the trusts that are already in the community, and a lot of the information that's asked for and a lot of the projects that come back are already accustomed to answering these types of questions. Um, but I don't think that it would be out of the realm of expectation for somebody in admin to help out. They'll be the ones receiving the application as it is, so that it can be checked for accuracy and completion. Um, but that whole after process can be talked about after it's approved or not, and then we don't need anybody.
Amos and Audrey.
Yeah, I like the way we're doing the suggestion, and I thank Elena for putting all the work and hours into creating this. Um, I think I might have mentioned that earlier, but it's about building capacity with our organizations. Um, they get money, they should report on it and have an evaluation and champion it with an annual report or whatever. And um, the only thing I really raised was the capacity part. That if we launched this, we should have a date that we launch it, whether it's soft or hard launch. And then we should also have, again, like what Melba was saying, a couple of weeks where we bring in these organizations and have a workshop with them about how to process or put the application together. And so it gives them a comfort level when they do the final one with their own committees or their own boards. Um, that's the part I like about it. Um, and at the end, we should also require, I don't know, I was just looking it through at the end, but there should be a report, a financial report, and a summary of events that took place with the grant as something that they table with us or with this group. And I don't know whether we talked about having a staff person to oversee this um, to help these organizations. Because I think there'll probably be about 12 right now when I think about it from the other day when we looked at the list that would need some help. Hand holding, I call it. Because a lot of these organizations don't have the capacity. Um, and we need to give them that capacity as, you know, their chair or treasurer to help put this application together. I know in my other life, I guess, I used to be on the Trillium Foundation, and that budget is $125 million for Ontario. And I was on there for 6 years. And how that started was we all took files as individual board members. We had to champion that file among the rest of us. So that could happen here. Like as counselors, we could champion some of these proposals, and then we meet together and say yes or no. That's one way of doing it. Where we all champion as individual counselors to each file, up to 12, I guess we would have, or some would get 2 maybe. But there's all kinds of options about how to evaluate these proposals. But I know I mentioned this early on, and is the capacity of our organizations to help them, their treasurer or their chair, to pull this together. And I think we're willing to do that. I think we're willing to have, like Melba said, maybe a month or so, announce it, and then say we're going to have these series of workshops. Could be weekend workshops with them because everybody works. especially when you're with the organizations as well. But I like this as a beginning. I think that I'd like to thank you, Elena, for taking the lead on this. It's a lot of work. From my experience being with the Trillium, I see it's a lot of work as well. I know we're not giving away 125 million, but still, we should have some process. And I'll leave it there.
Elena, you want to talk about the reporting? It is in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so in the draft funding agreement, if Natasha wanted to bring it up, if not, that's fine. It's 15, slide 15. Reporting requirements are progress and final reports required, including financial reporting. Now that sounds like a lot, but it's our process. So maybe a progress report is an email halfway through the project saying, yeah, we're on schedule. We're going to spend all of our money, or no, we're not on schedule. We're going to not spend all our money. It doesn't have to be cumbersome. It's our process. However, the reporting requirement is there to safeguard and create that accountability. It also has in that same section a final report presented at SNGR annual general meeting as required by council. So that's something that ECDEV had done that I found was missing at our annual general meeting. So the community wants to know where the money has gone. And it's one thing for the auditor to say this is where we spent it, or for the page that we provide to say this is where it went. But it's a whole other thing when you see community members standing up in front of you and showing you where the money went and who benefited, and the smiling faces of the kids, and that's a whole it gives you a whole different perspective. So not that we would have every applicant come to present, but in the agreement, if we asked them, they would be required to come and present, as this is community money that they would be receiving.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Thanks, Chief. I agree with my colleagues. I do want to see this process move forward because it does give us accountability, and that's who we are, accountable for the money that comes into council. I think it will give us equity in applying and for people to apply, not first come, first serve. So it also encouraged better planning. You know when your year-end celebration is going to be, so you have to back that up for a few months and make sure that you have all of your planning done for it. And I think it's also going to encourage new applications. If people get trained how to do it, then they might take that leap of faith and go and apply and try to get their business or their initiative off the ground. So I see a lot of positive in it. So I'm willing to agree with this and move with it. And I'd like to thank Elena as well for the hard work she put into this. And the Finance Committee, Amos, Dale, Cynthia, and Elena. Miss anybody? And Dean? You there too? Dean will be there.
Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know I had expressed some thoughts and ideas, and yeah, I'm all for the accountability component in regards to the community, I guess, in regards to the allocation of resources, funding we get. But I guess one thing that I wanted to voice, and I know I voiced it to Elena, is knowing that we establish a policy and the expectation is, and I know it's in there, it says as determined, because funds will only be subject to availability, because I know there's a lot that happens within council's finance and administration. So I guess the expectation is that it's may not always be there, or it may not always be at a certain amount. So I guess just availability to whatever is going on when the time comes. So that's just one thing I wanted to note it. And I was looking for some stronger words in there, but yeah, as determined, because we won't know until it happens what could be or would be available.
Okay, I'm gonna get to Helen and then back to Elena.
No, from my perspective, it's just we sit around this table and we're calling the government down all the time because they're making us jump through all these hoops every time we want to get money for something. We're always complaining because we've got to jump through all of these hoops. Well, we're turning around and doing the same thing to our own people. And I don't agree with that. I think we should try and help our people and make it as easy as we can for them to do things. And we've never really had any issue with it. Uh, People used to come and report what they did with the money, and when they went to get when they asked for new money in another year, they would come and say, "This is what we did," and we knew they did it. We knew they did it because we seen the results. So that's my. I don't know. I guess somebody must think it's funny, but that's how I feel. We don't like jumping through hoops, but we're making our own people do the same thing. And I think our people have been jumping through hoops for too many generations and centuries and decades as it is. I believe in making things easier as we can for our people. And Amos used a good phrase. He says, I believe in holding on hands, helping people, holding on hands and helping people.
Go ahead, Elena.
I don't want to take up our entire evening. So I'm going to ask you for some feedback, Helen. There's 5 sections to the application. Section 1 is general information. It goes over what the organization's name is, the applicant's name, the population that it serves, a business number if they have one, organizational chart, or board list. I don't find that providing any of that is out of the realm of our people's capacity. I don't think that that's too cumbersome. That's a requirement from any funding source that you would go to. That's basic stuff. And the executive summary is, again, where I said it's the meat and potatoes. So if you have dreamed up a project that requires more than $15,000, you should be able to articulate what that project is. And it doesn't have to be in academic English. It's your dream. It's what you see, what you want to happen to support the community. So we ask for how many people that your project is going to benefit. If there are going to be any negative impacts to the environment, which is what we should be asking. We should be asking that. If they have any other funding sources. And the only cumbersome part, and Audrey asked this question, might be where do you fall into the community plan and OFNLP? So those documents are available online, and I believe, I don't know that we have copies of the community plan, but the OFNLP is just, I think it's like 5 different categories that you need to fall under. And if it aligns with the community plan, it will most definitely align with OFNLP. And then the 3rd section is financials, so a detailed budget of the project, and including quotes. And then supporting documents is approval from your board, if you have a board, proof of land access. So if you're hosting a project, I'm hosting a project over at Sherry Lynn's house and I apply for funding, I get it. Later on, she says no. I need something in writing that says, yeah, I'm allowed to have that project there. That safeguards us approving that money so that it's not just wasted. It's not held up and tied up. The project's going to go ahead. And proof of insurance. And I can see that one being a little bit of a problem. And what I've heard done before is maybe riders on insurance. So that could also be an option that we explore. But a lot of people get insurance for events, buck and does, any types of fundraisers that they're having, they get insurance for those events and they pay it. Why should a project that's occurring that we're funding with community funds not have to do the same thing? We don't want anybody to be injured. We want everybody to be safe and for everybody to be accountable. So that's basically the application. And we're not asking for the moon and the stars with this. It's all just the very basic stuff that if somebody were to come and ask for $20,000 or $100,000 here in this room, we would ask them the same things. It's just gathering it all for us so that we don't have to sit here for 3 hours asking the same questions. We can get into finer detail if they come in to present. So
Okay, I have Melba and Hazel, and then we'll vote.
I'm just wondering, how are you going to be managing conflict of interest? How are you going to be doing that? You saw last night that I had to leave the room, but when the Integrity Commission, for example, came and presented, I didn't declare a conflict. And around this table, at times, you sit on committees where you have relatives, close relatives. How are you going to manage this with the applications and the other requirements that are involved?
So do you mean the scoring of them, Melba? Like when we get the projects in and
Or your
deliberating about it?
Yeah, your brother is on a board here,
Yeah.
and they're applying for.
Use your mic, Melba.
Your brother is on the board, and you're the people that are going to be looking into the application. I guess that's who's going to be the finance committee. I don't know that either. So how is that going to work, and what is your discussion, and what have you decided? Thanks.
Yeah, we didn't think that the finance committee would be involved in the scoring. As a matter of fact, we thought it might be in admin where maybe that happens, just like with the donation policy, although we didn't put that in this draft because it's up to this table. So if the table wants to score the projects, the table can score the projects. If the table wants to set aside a committee to do it, that's full council's prerogative. So there are things that are still within the table's control outside of the policy. Conflict of interest, I think we've had that discussion here, although it is captured in the purpose and the definitions. So so long as everybody's honest, then we should be fine.
Go ahead, Hazel.
Yeah, say, I'm just sitting here wondering, had the finance committee or the finance department themselves, if they could have been asked to draw up this accountability that seems to be missing. However, nobody ever thought about this for all the years before, and all the councils was handled the same way over and over again. So now I'm wondering, is this council meddling in administrative matters when in fact it should have been finance who would have put this together? I think it would be a heck of a lot easier to accept it like that if they had felt over time that this was a needed process and they worked on it and provided it to us as a council. So, yes, I'm having difficulty with this too. Thank you.
Dale.
No, I mean, this policy is here because council asked for it. We were looking at accountability for it. And yes, in the past, in regards to the allocation of money, yeah, it was always council. Councilors made the decision, councilors got the projects, councilors got the ideals, they went to the proponents, the community, and then it came back to this council or previous councils to make the decision. Same with this, like, it's not the finance committee making this decision. It's a policy and a process that we're looking to establish to be, I guess, somewhat administrative in a sense for finance to deal with once the resources have to get paid out. But all the decisions will still be at this table. So, I mean, it's here. You asked the committee to bring it here. It's here. It's up with what you guys want to do with it. If you want to amend it, you want to change it, like Elena said, nobody gave input. I know when it was at the committee level, we had input. Cynthia, myself, And I think Amos, we had input at the committee level, but it came to this council for more input, and like Lena said, nobody gave input, so it's up to you guys what you wanna do, because you guys asked for it.
Okay, the recommendation 8-1, again, moved by Cynthia Jamieson, second by Dale Bomberry, that the Finance Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River 59th Elected Council the draft Six Nations of the Grand River Community Strategic Investment Fund policy and application may be presented at the General Finance meeting in, say June?
Well, if we're gonna finalize it as it is, then we can just accept the policy and
As is.
application, yeah.
So we can take that part out?
Yep.
Okay. We'll take that part out. So is there a mover? Yeah, it's been moved, sorry. Moved by Cynthia, second by Dale. All right. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Helen's opposed, Melba's opposed, and Hazel's opposed. Go ahead, Helen. How come you're opposed?
I think I've already voiced that over the course of the meeting.
The minutes, Natasha says she needs to.
Needs to hear me say it again?
Yes.
I forgot what I said. No, I'm opposing because I just find it very bureaucratic. And I know some people are not going to have an issue with that when they try to come for some money, and I know some people are going to have an issue with that. Not everybody's in the same playing field when they come for money.
Okay, go ahead, Hazel, then Melba.
Yes, I'm opposed to it because I feel the same as Helen, that it's a bureaucratic move. And I think it's gonna make it difficult for our community when they come and if they need some help. If you need help, and then you have to come into a bureaucratic process to try and get some money, it's just gonna be difficult. Thanks.
Melba?
Yeah, I've already mentioned conflict of interest. That isn't resolved as far as I'm concerned. And Helen did quite a bit of talking and talked about the community. Yes, they asked questions about OFNLP. What did you do with it? But they're not saying they don't trust you. They're asking you, what did you do with it? And if it's explained in the papers and in your reports, then they accept that. So the policy and the process is for you. It's not, as far as I'm concerned, for the community. They've got along with trusting us. But if you put this in place, then saying, you don't trust us, do you? So I'm going to put this in place. So when are we ever going to get rid of some of the areas that are actually working? Not exactly, and either is this going to work completely. It's not going to. We need to allow the community to listen to us, which we complain about a lot. So that's my reasoning. Policies and procedures are for us. Are we
Okay.
accountable? Are we honest? Do we have integrity through and through? Do we follow our code that we're supposed to follow? Not always, but this would not be always either. So that's my reasoning.
Okay, thank you for that. So it was carried. Just to let the community know, copies of the community plan are available in the at the administration building, and it's on the bottom shelf of the bookshelf, I was told. Go ahead, Elena.
So, thinking about what Amos was saying, we have a finance committee meeting on Friday, and I wonder if maybe that can be the topic. One of the topics that we discuss is maybe how often this needs to be rolled out, whether it's in whether there's calls for applications or whether it's open and then we review them as they come in. Just the logistics of that, but also the campaign that you were talking about. And I wonder if we might have access to comms to maybe even do a video that would get attached to the application link that would be available online.
For sure. I think, if you guys can discuss that. And I think also, too, I think it's important for it to be open because as the others have, certain dates that it needs to be applied for.
Yeah.
I think for this, for it to come from council, for it to be open, so it's, don't have to miss a date or anything.
Yeah.
But if you guys can discuss that at your finance committee.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amos. And
Guess too, we could also look at what would be the annual budget or allocation for this fund. We could look at that as well, recommend that to council, and then if it's gonna be open, like you said, or is it gonna be a deadline and that kind of stuff, so we could talk about that at finance. The other thing is, I guess, when we are going to launch it, like, cause some of the seasons are already started, like the farmers, they're all, and we have bread and cheese already. Are we gonna require bread and cheese to do that, or is that our event? Is that our event, the bread and cheese? Okay, but other organizations like the Powwow Committee who's gonna be coming and, like how do we make sure that they make, I guess we just keep it open, there's no deadline, so we don't have to worry, but it's getting them their capacity to apply. That's what I'm concerned with.
yeah, and getting it out there. So if you guys can discuss that and probably the comms, pull in the comms to be able to get this out when needed. Okay? All right, let's go to number 10, recommendation from the Wellbeing Committee, moved by Greg Fraser. I need another mover. Moved by Audrey Paulus Bomberry and seconded by Hazel Johnson, that the Wellbeing Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River 59th Elected Council, whereas the Six Nations of the Grand River attended the Bridge Care and Culture Care gathering on March 19th, 2026. Therefore, it be resolved that the Six Nations of the Grand River Department of Wellbeing participate and spearhead the Path of Reconciliation initiative, including future planning, partnerships, and evaluation. So it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Anybody opposed? See none. Carried. Can I waive second reading on that one? Moved by Audrey, second by Hazel. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none. Carried. Let's go to number 11, update from committee meetings. Unity Building, External Government Relations, Justice Committee. Meeting date, Wednesday, May 6, 2026. Is that Greg's? Okay. So we'll have to, can we add that one to the next General Council? Let's go to number 2, Lands and Resource, Wealth and Economy Committee. Meeting date, Tuesday, May 12th, 2026. Is that Cynthia?
Yeah. That's me.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I actually have something that I can report on. That is, most of our items fall under the in camera. But what was brought up was questioned today was the whole business. And Chief, you said in your update, you had the meeting with Alti, and one of the issues you raised was the whole ATR, that is addition to reserve policy. That's what we were discussing today in our meeting. Generally, I don't know how many are aware, but our programs are certainly aware. Council is aware. Our lands research is aware of the issues that have faced First Nations all across Canada with this talk about cumbersome, long additions to reserve policy. And we got on that, we were questioning, discussing, and we asked, like, how many of these addition to reserve applications do we currently have? And we were informed there's currently 7 that we have, and there's 2 more to be added. Actually, there's 4 pieces of land that total some 250 acres, but because they're contiguous alongside of each other, it'll be put into 2 pieces added. And just to give you an idea, a better idea, if you're not fully aware of how long
and frustrating this process is. We asked, the oldest is the Dijak property. That's been going on since 1994. And there's actually three of them in that category that were identified as the Hewer, 1994, and the Zwick, 1994. The more recent that you're probably familiar with is the Sloat property. That was 2021. That's the property across from Little Buffalo. And as I noted, this has been complained about this whole process, and it's so long. And you can see by these dates, what is that? 26, 32 years has been dragging on. And as a result, the taking the lead in this is SNGREC, that is Crown Indigenous Relations, Northern Affairs Canada is taking the lead on this. That is, they're looking to revise this policy so it will, as a result, not be so long. Our council probably recall our lands research put together a paper to submit, making recommendations and what some of the issues were. And we got, what did we get last? I think it was December, January, a report from SNGREC. The report was, this is what we heard. And in the report, they, from across Canada, identified all these issues, essentially what slows this process down. And we understand that it's this July, they'll be coming out with the final policy. But what they had also identified was, in the interim, there were 9 areas that they wouldn't wait on that policy. They would just make these changes right away. One of them just to give you an idea what drags this on so long, is for the process, how it begins is there has to be a band council resolution that goes with this application to have whatever parcel added to our reserve. And the process, this isn't everything, but part of it is it's ISC actually that would accept the applications. They would go through and do a work plan, make sure everything's in there. That is the title search, the land survey. Some of the things that have to be done takes forever, such as we have to do municipal consultation. So we would have to ask those municipalities near to us, do they have any objections? And of course, they always have objections. And it's not only the municipalities, but it's also the ministry. The provincial ministries have to voice if they have some objection. Now, as though that weren't difficult enough, there's this thing called stale dating. That is, after a 2-year period, if we finally get some response from the ministries or the municipalities, if it's longer than 2 years, it becomes stale dated. It's no longer in effect. Another part of this process includes doing environmental site assessment, which is very, 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 very expensive. We asked for some estimates of what it costs. Well, it can be anywhere from, it depends what's on the property, 20 to 30,000, and in a couple cases it was 50,000. And these environmental site assessments also become stale dated after 5 years, and we're required to do them all over again. So you can see with these conflicting, it's going to stale date in 2 years, so the whole business gets put behind, and we have to redo that part, or the environmental site assessments. Now, in the interim, they said until this new policy comes out, supposedly in July, there were 9 areas that they said, well, we were not going to wait for the new policy, and we'll move on it right away. One of them is this still dating of the environmental site assessments. And one of the people from our lands research office said they were in a meeting with Alti and had noted, it was all about this whole ATR, and noted that the message has not floated down to the staff level, that they're still fully expecting compliance with the policy as it is. it's like no one told them or directed them about these new or these 9 interim changes. So like that's something that we have to, and what we're going to do is for the next meeting with them, we'll have a full report listing all the 7 properties, how many acres are involved in each one of those, and how much have we spent on these environmental site assessments. It seems to me we've probably racked up a lot of expense in that regard, especially with the still dating going on. Is there Amos or Elena? You were in our meeting, Helen. Did you want to add anything? And oh, I want to add something myself. We get that report back from them listing all these properties and a narrative to go along because of the lands resource staff were citing some of the issues that were present with this. So when we get the report back in the next meeting and the narratives, we're going to ask that they make a presentation to full council, because full council should be aware in any opportunity we come across the paths of people such as Ulti or well, any of the ministers involved, we can bring up this and really press them on it. I don't know, Amos or Helen or Elena, did you want to add anything to that?
Yep, go ahead, Amos.
Yeah, with my colleagues at the end of the meeting, as the community knows, or at least council knows, that I've been on the Brantford General Hospital Site Plan Task Force. And we had a nice session last Friday. It was all day. We had to hand in our scores for all the properties that we're looking at. And we came down to 3. And as part of that background that they gave us Google Maps of all the properties, all that beautiful stuff that can come up on screens nowadays. We could do that even with our ATRs, look at what it looks like on a property on Google Maps. But one thing that was brought up to my attention, I really thought was valuable, and I shared it with Elena and Cynthia after our meeting, was maybe that we put in a request to our lands to find out what the value of the tract is in 2026. There actually is a company called Colliers that they used, and they were able to give us an approximate value of the land that we're looking at. So can you imagine in 2026 going into this lawsuit, what we would know what the value of all the properties and all the blocks that we once owned in today's dollar value. And we can use that in the litigation, that our evidence shows this. If we're going to settle, it's got to be nothing less than this amount. So I think that's something we could talk to lands about, and we can talk to ourselves about, and maybe engage in this kind of company that does land assessments. I thought it was valuable for our thinking when we're looking at the properties in Brantford, but I think we could do that for our own, I guess, our evidence as we go into court.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Go ahead, Helen. And Elena, did you have something too?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
wanted to say too, I'm disappointed in the Chiefs of Ontario and the AFN because everybody's just jumping to whatever the government wants with the ATR. Government's telling us this is what we're going to do, and everybody's accepting it. I wanted 6 Nations to develop its own land back process instead of land added to reserve, because that's what it is. It's land back. We're getting land back. And I wanted us to do our own process and fight that process that the government's promoting, but I couldn't seem to light a fire under anybody to do so. Still think we could do that, but because the chiefs and the AFN's so accepting of doing whatever the government says, well, we need some fighters. Like I think of Chief Mentor and those kind of people were sitting here, they probably would be fighting it, but we don't fight like we used to. We don't have fighters no more. They just sit back and let government do whatever they want. So, but I think 6 Nations should be doing its own. We're big enough, and we would call it a land back process, not added to reserve, because the Confederacy I know don't support the added to reserve, but they might support the land back process. And we'd have to fight for it. We would have to fight government for it, not just letting them tell us what to do. But
Well, I
anyway,
think
it's going
that's
forward anyways
yeah. Well,
without us.
I think the other part about it is meeting Minister Alti, have a number of times with counselors, and we have gave her our concerns and wanting our land back. So yes, there is things being done. So we are met with her probably three times, 3 or 4 times, and gave her the same message, where Six Nations stands. So it has been being done. Go ahead, Elena.
I think that's why I'm excited about the forthcoming report from Lands and Resources is for those specific meetings that you have. You'll have that all of that information in one place. So I was really surprised to know that the oldest piece of land in the added to reserve process is from 94. The newest is 2021. So these pieces have been sitting in that process, and I'm sure Cynthia has mentioned the stale dating of the municipal and provincial consultation letters, and then having to redo all the time the environmental assessments. It's costing us money. And so Amos had asked for a few things in that report, and the acres, how long these pieces have been there, and then also the full costs associated with those things. So you'd have a total of this is how much these things are costing us, and there's very little opportunity. There is a little bit, but very little opportunity for us to recover any of those costs. And it seems like to them, it's a cash cow, right? We keep these properties there long enough, and they're just benefiting from it. Um, and then also the mapping so that we can all see where these properties exist.
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some of the comments that Chief made, and the Chief's office has been working on this. I have in my hand a list of the properties, the acreage, what we're paying taxes on, what municipalities are billing us for taxes, et cetera, which ones are not, which agreements we have, because we started this be 2 years ago now, I believe, where Chief Hill had put forward a resolution for us to at coup to have municipal tax exemption restored on properties that are off reserve. We did present the total acreage, which I believe is around 1,120 some acres that are in the ATR process with Minister Ulti last December. We've done follow-up since, and they have committed to looking at how they can expedite some of these, because, you know, as Helen said, as everyone said, the ATR process has gone on for decades, right? And we're sitting there. So we are very active in this area, and I'm kind of surprised you guys are just learning, because we've been working with CAP on this for some time, learning what we can do, even with Minister Rickford. Last year, the year before, I can't remember, between AMO or Roma, we did the follow-up because he said, well, give me the total number of acres that you're paying the municipal tax on as well, right? Because that's a provincial regulation that changed in 1988 or 98. I don't remember the year, but there's lots of work being done on it as well. Thank you.
Okay, can I have a mover to accept this information? Moved by Dale, second by Elena. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 12. The next meeting will be May 26, 2026. Deadline for the agenda items is noon on Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. And I need a motion to adjourn. Is there a mover? Moved by Amos. Second by Hazel. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a great night, everyone.